So writer-director Stephen Sommers resurrects one of the classic Universal monsters into one of the most fun action blockbusters of the 90s. So let's unearth the thrills and scares with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz in The Mummy. In Thebes, Egypt, 1290 BC, High Priest Imhotep and Anaxamun, the mistress of the pharaoh, engage in forbidden love until their adultery is discovered by the pharaoh himself, and they are forced to kill him. Anaxamun kills herself in defiance of the Magi, the pharaoh's bodyguards, believing Imhotep can resurrect her later. However, when attempting to do so at Hamunaptra, the city of the dead, the Magi halt the ceremony and bury Imhotep and his priests alive. However, the Magi vow to protect this site with their very lives to prevent the High Priest from ever returning. Come 1923 AD, French legionnaires do battle on the cursed city of the dead, but only adventurer Rick O'Connell witnesses the stirrings of supernatural evil, lying in wait. 3 years later, librarian and inspiring Egyptologist Evelyn is presented with an intricate box from her brother Jonathan that contains a map leading to Hamunaptra. However, the map gets burned by Dr. Terrence Bay, but Jonathan ultimately reveals that he stole it off of O'Connell, who is currently imprisoned for decadent indulgences. Thus, Evie has to make a deal with his jailer in order to free him, so they can find the hidden city. As Rick, Jonathan, and Evie embark on their journey, they encounter a band of American treasure hunters, led by Rick's cowardly buddy, Benny. However, the Magi, led by Ardith Bay, repeatedly try to cut off their attempts to find this ancient city, but O'Connell and the others fend them off, and survive to dig deep under the sand. Yet when the Americans and their entourage unearth a chest containing the Book of the Dead, it is Evie who has the key from Jonathan, who opens and reads from the book, reawakening the mummified body of Imhotep. The undead High Priest begins to kill and absorb the bodies of those who open that chest, in order to regenerate himself. This brings about a solar eclipse, locusts, and plagues of the nearby population, but more alarming is that Imhotep sees Evie as the vessel to resurrect his love, Anaxamun. Forced to go with him to save everyone else, Evie's time is finite as Rick, Jonathan, and Ardith race across the desert through sandstorms and zombie priests to save Evelyn and bury Imhotep in the sands of Hamunaptra for all time. So hitting U.S. cinemas on May 7th of 1999 and rolling out to many international markets throughout the rest of that summer, The Mummy became a major blockbuster success, grossing over $416 million of an $80 million budget, basically over quintupling its own budget at the box office, making Universal very, very happy, which took about 10 years to actually come to fruition. Because back in like the late 80s, they were kind of starting to court ideas from various filmmakers to do a low-budget horror version of the entire franchise, starting with George A. Romero, followed up by Clive Barker and Mick Garris and Joe Dante, all guys you'd almost love to see their own interpretations of the classic monster. All big names in the field at the point in time, but it didn't come up to about 1997 where screenwriter Kevin Jarre, who had already done a story credit on Rambo First Blood Part 2, wrote the screenplays for Glory and The Devil's Own, is also the guy who wrote and was supposed to direct Tombstone, until he kind of ran behind schedule and he got excised from the production due to various reasons. But he was working on a story for the entire thing and actually came up to the point where he came up with a lot of the ideas that would mold into Stephen Sommers' screenplay and his pitch for reimagining the whole thing, where he's like, he grew up watching the whole thing. The original black and white version from way back when with Boris Karloff, he loved that whole thing. And he found the mummy to be such a creepy creature that he wanted to take so many of the different elements that he loved as a kid and kind of make him a bigger thing, sprawling, big scope type of thing going on. And Sommers was coming right off of Deep Rising, this wonderfully action schlock movie that bombed at the box office because partially due to being released like a month after Titanic, where everything was pretty much getting wiped out in the tidal wave of that film, and some pretty uninspired marketing choices by Touchstone Pictures, but clearly they saw something in his pitch, saw something they really got excited for, because there's a lot of, throughout those old years, there's different change of the guard at Universal and stuff going on, and by the time they're kind of pitching the idea to the executives, it was kind of a new stage in the entire production line of Universal there, so got the right people ahead of it. They liked what he had to say about it, so they gave him the entire license to go forward with developing the screenplay and writing and directing it himself. And unfortunately, they weren't actually able to shoot in Egypt because there's some very unstable socio-political things happening at the time, so ended up in Marrakesh in Morocco and shot there, along with inside the Sahara Desert and back at Shepperton Studios in the UK, running for 17 weeks straight. So it was a big production. It's like, it took a lot of, again, that sort of change of the guard at Universal to take it from this, like, maybe a $10 million low-budget horror film to make it a much bigger blockbuster epic in a certain way. So it was such a good thing. Like, Stephen Sommers, no matter what you think of some of his later films and some things here and there where they get a little heavy on the CGI and they kind of lose a little bit of the sort of quality in a certain way of how well it's written or how well it's presented, gets a little loose on the chain in a certain way, but he knows how to kind of focus in and try to make that great summer action blockbuster type of experience. And so it's such a great thing having a guy come in who had a love for the original thing and wanted to take some of the elements of horror, but wanted to make sort of a big, sprawling epic out of the whole thing and just capture a certain feeling that I don't think it was really quite around in the 90s, that kind of quality, because it was all a lot more contemporary action films. You weren't getting those sort of throwbacks or kind of period piece type of things you had with the Indiana Jones franchise. It kind of fizzled out and kind of like lay dormant, so it's kind of a nice time to kind of re-inject the type of flavor there. It's like one of those things like getting all the sort of period qualities of the whole thing. I kind of like that vibe of the whole thing. It is set back in the 1920s, and you have all the great style and the production design. It looks fabulous on screen. It just gives a certain aura to the entire film. To wrap it up in that type of time, that culture, the era, all these different things, bringing in all the different visual aesthetics you can bring into the whole thing, and a certain sense of the dress as well. The costuming in the film is absolutely fantastic. I mean, one, Rachel Weisz, she's made to look like one of the most beautiful women in the entire world, which she actually is. But just the fact that they did such a great, elegant job with all her dress in the whole film. But they make all the characters very distinct through the dress. I like how the wardrobe just makes a certain specific sensibility about how each person looks and how they appear in the entire film. It's a very particular type of way of just addressing the characters, approaching them in such a way to have those little details. The dress makes the character. It helps the actor to make that distinctive quality about their performance and bring a certain quality overall to the entire scope of the film. And bringing certain cultures in here and there when you're getting much more into Egypt and Cairo, all these different things, and have different people going off. When you got the Americans, are a little bit more cowboyish. All the type of quality to it, but then you have a little bit more of that sort of Middle Eastern quality to certain people, and some other things are also a little more British. So I like that they paid attention to certain culture in that regard to bring those different qualities out and have such a great aesthetic to the entire film, which is greatly aided by the cinematography from Adrian Bill, this guy who shot Aliens, The Princess Bride, Thelma and Louise, Event Horizon. The guy's a fantastic cinematographer. He just created a great body of work for himself, and he makes the film look wonderful. Just like such a well-experienced artistic hand at the helm of making this film look absolutely beautiful. All the landscapes you have involved and all the different things, it's like it feels natural so much how the film is lit and put forth in such a way where it's not overly stylized. It still makes sure that the production design comes off and the set pieces look so absolutely grand. It makes the film look wonderful. I think Stephen Sommers has got a really good head on himself to make sure all these different qualities of just the period setting comes off so lush and rich in such different ways that really just aids to the life of the film overall. It gives a vibrance to everything that's going on to energize the film and make all these different things look absolutely gorgeous all over the entire place. But the fabulous locations and the fantastic production design are only part of making a really good mummy movie here, because you gotta have the effects work. And they employed industrial light magic to lead that whole thing, along with Cinecite and Pacific Title / Mirage, to just create this entire world. Just like Sommers was so pleased having ILM involved, because they just gave you so many different ideas and so many different ways of going about things. It's like you could pitch a certain number of things here, but they had so many different ways of going about approaching an idea. And ILM, just like with those other companies following behind them and stuff like that, aiding to the production, they really did a good job in this whole thing. It's like, this film's 23 years old. I watched the entire 4K version. It's like, a lot of these effects still do hold up very well. Just like they put in the time, they put in the effort to make sure that a lot of this stuff really just holds up very, very well. There's still a couple of shots here and there, because the time they made it, probably not as much resolution as you'd get for a film today, but they still maintained a lot of good quality in this whole thing. Just like there's so many different qualities of the film that they went through to develop all this stuff. I mean, the motion mapping on like Arnold Vosloo, and having to do the motion capture stuff for him before he becomes a fully formed human being in a certain way, the fully formed version of Imhotep. Just like everything they went through, just like every detail to create the skeleton, the tendons, the muscles, all the different things on that CGI version of Imhotep. It's fascinating to hear them talk about how they went through so specifically to make sure everything moved the way it had to, and that they couldn't really cheat anything because you're showing so much of it. There's just a couple bandages here and there, but you're showing so much of the different elements of that creature on screen. And you got so many other different things going on in the whole thing with all the little scarabs. They're just absolutely creepy. And all these different things, just like all the different effects where they create all the priests at the end, where they're kind of doing all this wonderful slashing and cutting them up and stuff like that, where it's like Brendan Fraser's got to kind of play against complete air, swinging the sword around and kind of hitting all the different marks and all these different things. It's kind of wonderful to kind of see that at that time, doing that sort of fun filmmaking, using cutting edge technology to realize that they couldn't have done 10 years before when they were originally kind of looking for a new version of this entire franchise. It's such a great thing to just see how all these different things go up and how enthusiastic all the people were involved with creating these fantastic effects in the film. Like I said, some maybe look a little fuzzy or soft, like the sandstorm sequence. Even though it's supposed to be like real sandstorm stuff, like I recently talked about Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol with that fantastic sandstorm sequence. This is like, it's a little fuzzy. It doesn't have the best clarity and stuff like that, but it's like, it still holds up so extremely well. There's certain other films that probably came out even just a couple years before this that really don't hold up that well in terms of the digital quality of the effects work, but it's like they really put in the time. And that's the main thing. It's like you can have the money, but if you don't give them enough time to lay out the details, render it as well as they possibly can, make sure they have all the different qualities and the layers and all the textures involved, it's not going to come out as well. So they really did a good job getting all that stuff. They started shooting about 1 year before the film was being released, so shooting for about 17 weeks up until like August or September. So they probably had a good 7-8 months about post-production time to really work on that with actual filmed footage, but obviously they were developing and doing concept art and getting all the different things going on even before Arnold Vosloo was even cast in the film, to get all the different designs off and all the different models going. They did a great job. They did a fantastic job with all the effects of this whole thing. Even some of the physical effects actually looked fantastic as well. So it's like just seeing all the different things where you have a little bit more of the physical actors and the wrapped up with the bandages, stuff like that, and various other little things. It just comes off fantastic. All these different things, just like it holds up. Most of the effects work in the film does hold up. Just like there's a couple of shots like at the end when Imhotep is being kind of swallowed back up in that kind of supernatural pool. That's very bad. And like the old DVD and the old Blu-ray transfers don't do the best job because they got DNR, they got artificial sharpening, so they don't really show the best filmic qualities. The 4K one makes a lot of these effects really stand up very, very well. And the cast of this film is so goddamn good. Everyone slots in these wonderful, fantastic, lively, fun characters so well. It's like Brendan Fraser been building himself up a little bit here and there. He'd come off of like George of the Jungle, which like pretty much did a lot of good business, and it kind of like honed in on him as like this guy. He's got a big film. He's kind of a fun guy on screen. He's got a lot of these different things like Encino Man and various other things. He's got the comedy chops, and so they kind of look at this guy after they've probably looked at a couple other like big leading men and stuff like that, but he slots so well as Rick O'Connell. He's got all the different qualities, exactly what this film is going for. He's got the great action leading man qualities of the charisma and the good looks and all the different things. He can handle himself so well in the physicality, all the action stuff, no problem. It's like the chemistry, the sharpness, all these different things he has with the timing of all the comedy beats in the entire film is absolutely perfect. He's fantastic as Rick O'Connell. Sure, that he's got these different qualities. He can play a little bit of the, not so much the dumb guy, but he's a little bit kind of like, he's a little bit out of his element in some places here and there, dealing with Evie and dealing with Jonathan, all these different things. It's like, oh, there's not quite his speed of people, not quite his quality of people, not his style. He's a little bit more roguish, a little bit more outlaw in a certain way. So he's got these different kind of qualities. He's not entirely like the cowboys or the Americans in the entire film. So even though he's an American character, he's not quite them. He's a little bit sharper, a little bit smarter, a little bit more cautious in a certain way. So he's got all these different qualities of the adventure in the entire film. And working off of Rachel Weisz, stellar actress, so much good stuff before this, and especially after this. She's proven herself 100 goddamn times on 100 damn things, showing that she's just an amazing talent. I love her so much. She's such a bright, shining talent in this entire film. She's such that bookish quality. The librarian who's a little clumsy. She's not a worldly person. It's like she's book smart, but she's not a worldly smart person in these situations where you're getting into the action, the danger, and dealing with different types of sort of dangerous characters and all these different things and seedier people here and there. So, but it makes such great comedy. Someone who's a little bit out of their element in a certain way, dealing with these types of things, trying to impose a sort of sophisticated, proper British woman in such a way, but showing she's got a little bit of a rough and tumble edge. She can handle the situations. She's a little bit on that edge where she can deal with the entire thing, taking a sort of step forward when Imhotep kind of has everyone kind of clustered in the entire town square. Is like, yeah, she'll step up. She'll kind of go off and use that reason in a certain way. It's like, yeah, I can go with him and save all you guys, where you can still come to the rescue. It's not over at this point in time, thinking a little bit intelligently. She's a very intelligent character, written so well, and just performed with such a magnificent elegance with her performance. Like all the different things where she can just be a little goofy, a little silly here and there, but she still has all that respectable quality in a certain way. I like so much how Evie goes along in the film and grows a little bit here and there, and where she has such a magnificent quality throughout the entire film that makes it such a wonderfully enjoyable thing, just having that building chemistry. You got a little bit of that sort of, I don't want to say equate to like Han Solo and Princess Leia in The Empire Strikes Back. The little bit banter. A little bit kind of chipping away back and forth a little bit at each other. A little snark here, but a little look here and there. When they're doing that sort of race towards Hamunaptra, and she's kind of galloping with the camel, and they have that little look between those, like the wonderful little sprinkles of that little thing there to make sure you get the glimmer in the eye. To show off how that's building between the two characters. Getting that sort of just that sweeping romanticism in the entire film. There's very much an element that Stephen Sommers wanted to hit so well, and just like Fraser and Weisz just have magnificent chemistry. They're beautiful on screen together, just like they grow so much in the second film. They're wonderful there, and of course, Rachel Weisz has come back with the third film. They recast her role here and there and everywhere. I haven't heard good things about the third film. We'll get to that stuff at a different point in time, but she's just a glimmering, shining, wonderful talent in this whole film, just doing beautiful stuff. I love her in this whole film. She's absolutely hilarious, charming, endearing, awesome. And of course, got John Hammond here portraying her brother of Jonathan. It's like he's got this nice, smarmy wit where he doesn't shade away from the audience. He still makes himself enough of a enjoyable character. He never gets off that type of thing, because you also got couple other characters a little bit more towards like, okay, this person's definitely going to be an obstacle. They're definitely going to be an adversary. But Jonathan still has enough of a quality where he's a little bit cowardly, but he still has a nobility about himself. He can still step up at the moment and be a little bit of a hero, charge into some action, defend people, go into danger, stuff like that. He's still got a nice comic quality about himself without getting too outlandish. But then you got Kevin J. O'Connor, who's like this Stephen Sommers staple. He was already in Deep Rising. He shows up in the G.I. Joe films. He shows up in a lot of different things that Stephen Sommers would do after this. I like Kevin J. O'Connor. He's great in Lord of Illusions. He does a lot of good stuff here and there. He's a really versatile actor. When you start looking at all the different things he can do, sure, he can do the comedy wonderfully, but he can do some really good drama as well. It's like, he's perfect as Benny. Just this sniveling weasel of a character. It's like he's got no real he's only loyal to the person who can give him the most benefit. Just like, once there's the slightest bit of danger with this character, once he has to face anything that's a little bit of a threat, he's just the sniveling, pathetic piece of crap. I love it when imhotep coming up to him, he's pulling off every little religious little necklace he can possibly get to have any sort of salvation. He doesn't subscribe to any belief, anything like that. He's just a con artist. Whatever he can use to his benefit to manipulate himself out of a situation, he'll absolutely use it. Just like he's a wonderful snake in the grass. I love it when O'Connell just has to manhandle him, or he's got to like squeeze some information out of him. It's comic genius. I think it's absolutely fantastic. He hits Sommers' style of comedy, that kind of much more, again, exaggerated sort of comic style that he really kind of goes for. That maybe goes a little too encompassing with later films that he produces, but he hits it so well. He knows exactly what Sommers wants. He always comes back to do great stuff with him. I think it's just fantastic as Benny. He's a wonderful cog in this entire film that absolutely gets his comeuppance. I like the fact that even though he's entertaining, he's kind of enjoyable, but again, he's betrayed everyone in the entire film. He's gotten people killed. He's been complicit in a lot of bad things. Like, yeah, he's got to get consumed and chomped up by all the scarabs at the end of the film. I like that they don't miss that beat. Nice, they kind of like, yeah, he's got to bite it at the end of the film. Another guy gets a real good bump off this film was Oded Fehr. Wonderful screen presence with the man, playing the character of Ardith Bey. Is like, again, back to the dress. All the all-black robes and all that type of stuff with the Magi look wonderful. I like all the tattoos and stuff like that on the face. I like every little quality. All the guys who portray the Magi have these great looks. All the different things with the guys who are jumping on the boats and ransacking the whole place and attacking everyone. It's a wonderful look. Perfect look. And just Oded Fehr is a wonderful actor. Just like, again, great screen presence. He brings a lot of that stoic quality you really have to get when everyone's kind of playing things a little bit humorous and comical here and there. He never really gets that. He's very much the straight character. You need to have a little bit of that honorable nobility, that kind of quality. But he's also got the kind of the straight man lines in the entire film. Like, he can still head off on a little bit of a line that's humorous, but not play it so jokey. I like he can hit that balance in a straight way with the entire film, then not have everyone kind of bouncing jokes off of one another in the same type of fashion. He can be a little bit more of a strong stand-up type of character in that regard. I like his quality so much on screen, but you gotta talk Arnold Vosloo, man. Guy, again, he did the Dark Man sequels as Peyton West, like taking over from Liam Neeson, but you gotta love him from Hard Target, man. Pick Van Cleef. One of his best roles of all time, of course. This is a fantastic role. Just like, you know he's played villains before, and you know he loves doing it. Another guy who would kind of come back with the G.I. Joe films for Sommers, but Arnold Vosloo is so good. Even when he just has to step into a scene and give a look, the guy has such a mastery of it. The little evil smile he has at certain points at times, like this guy absolutely knows how to get exactly, perfectly on the bullseye. Every single time he's got the right presence to kind of come in and be a dramatic, powerful character on screen. Everything he goes on. He apparently lost about 10 to 15 pounds. Of I'm going to be showing a lot of body in this whole thing. So it's he got in really good shape for the whole thing and brought a lot of enthusiasm towards even though he was under kind of some restrictions here, knowing he had to do a lot of these visual effects, and the visual effects supervisors, like, they have to photograph in the right way. We have to have them perform it the right way to make sure we're seeing it from the right angles, all these different things. He still maintained a fantastic presence of the entire film. Even though he only shows up for, like, the very beginning of the film, like, he doesn't show up again until after the halfway point of the film, well after it, after all the CGI is gone. He just, with Vosloo portraying Imhotep, the guy's magnificent. He knows exactly how to play a bad guy, and does such a great job of it. Like, doesn't chew it too much, but he knows how to be big on screen. He knows how to just project that quality, the menace, the aura of the character so much on screen. Just, guy's fantastic. I absolutely love seeing him doing all these different awesome villain performances. Just like the time he actually gets as a flesh and blood being on screen, he makes the absolute most of it, along with all the other cast in this whole film, to do a tremendous job overall. And if you're talking about the master, you're talking about Jerry Goldsmith composing a fantastic, spectacular score for this film. I absolutely love all the Egyptian flavors he weaves into the entire tapestry of this film. Everything comes off just like it's such a rich and vibrant score that creates so much life. I love so much. It's like he creates all these fantastic themes, and it shows so much like, well, we don't get as much with movie scores as well today for like big blockbusters. He puts in so much depth and texture to all the different things to create an overall experience. The soundtrack has its own life. Outside the film itself, just like it sounds so rich to listen to it on its own. You can experience the entire film through the score and hear all the different qualities that you're getting with the rousing action, the sweeping romanticism, all the different qualities that Steven Sommers was going for. Goldsmith hit exactly on the nail. He already worked with him on Deep Rising, putting together another great score for him. And it's like, it's such good stuff. Goldsmith was legendary. And this film score is so much exemplary on that regard. You can listen to this and see exactly what his quality was. Know what he brought to the table, what he amplified for a film overall. And even just listening to the original soundtrack, it's great. But apparently Entrada has put out an expanded, complete score for it, which is like, you've just got to get this if you're a Goldsmith fan or whatnot. It's awesome. Awesome score. I just absolutely love hearing everything put together for this whole thing. It's just gorgeous to me. And The Mummy is a film that just like, it just completely succeeds at exactly what it's going after. Just marvelously so. All the different qualities are just like this big fun action blockbusters. Like, they're not trying to, like today, trying to build up a bigger franchise or a dark universe or all these different things. It's trying to make a really good single film. And it's such a great thing. It's just like, so much of the fun, I mean, one is the humor. But the action film is so, like, endlessly imaginative. All the different things they employ, it's like we can do so many fantastical things to make this fun and rousing, all the different qualities with such a big scale sensibility to the entire film. All the different things, the imagination can really be fertile here and still maintain a quality. Still maintain an organic, logical sense of how the story progresses while not getting too overbloated with things. It's still focused. It's still focused on making a fun, enjoyable film with rich characters and just like so many different set pieces, just like they deliver so much on exactly what the film wants to be. Be a little bit scary, a little bit thrilling, a little bit of danger here and there. You still have all these different qualities. I mean, when Imhotep is starting to suck all these Americans away and trying to regenerate himself, some of the sequences are fairly scary. It's like if you have little kids, a little twitch here and there. I mean, when the guy's standing there with no eyes and no tongue, it's kind of scary. It still taps into that a little bit here and there to maintain that link back to what Steven Sommers grew up on and loved so much about the original, and still kind of morph it into something that is a big epic blockbuster and does great things to make sure that you have a serious villain here. And Vosloo really wanted to come in. He didn't want to play it silly or anything like that. He really wanted to maintain a menace with the character of Imhotep. So you still have all these different great qualities where you respect the characters, but you still have all these different things where there's certain silly elements and certain qualities. Like, it's such a great focused film. So much on looking at, again, later Stephen Sommers films where he gets a little bit more indulgent. He gets a little bit further off the handle in terms of the tone and the comedy and the overuse of kind of like undercooked CGI. This is just him, just perfect. Exactly where he needs to be, how he needs to work. A big budget type of thing that's not too big, but enough to realize a vision there and just come up with something that is just like perfect. It's perfect summer blockbuster material, and it's one of those things like this came out early May. Summer blockbusters didn't quite come out that early just yet. They were more like start Memorial Day and going forward. This was one of the first films I remember like came out a little bit earlier, so it's like she was kind of thinking like, oh, we can start putting them out just a little bit earlier. A couple weeks before Memorial Day. Started stretching that thing out a little bit further. So like one of the first things was like early May wasn't quite the sweet spot, but it was like it hit so nicely a couple weeks before like Phantom Menace and still made a healthy profit and such a major success. I saw this film a couple of times in the theaters. It was just a really fun type of thing that, again, over 20 years later, the thing still holds up. It still is funny. It still is exciting. It still is entertaining. Even, again, like the visual effects, a lot of them still hold up pretty damn well. With just a few minor things here and there, a couple of shots here and there. It's like, it's not quite as good. It was such a good film. It's like I'm tempted to watch Mummy Returns again, knowing that the film has some notoriously bad CGI that I don't want to subject myself to, and again, some little further over-the-top qualities I don't remember being so good, but the characters are still so good. Certain other qualities, I'm sure there's still a lot of fun, a lot of good humor, a lot of different things are probably still good in The Mummy Returns, despite a lot of the flaws it does have. But this film, just like, it leaves you wanting more. It's such a good experience to sit back and watch this. I don't even know when the last time I watched this was, but it's so good. That the fact that it's been so long and still as good as it was the first time I saw this film is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love everything that goes on in this whole film. It's just I can't say much more. It's kind of a masterpiece of just like popcorn cinema. There's nothing egregious about it. There's nothing offensive. There's nothing bad about it. It's all just good. It's good characters, good story, good action, great score, all these different things. Everything is just good on this film. You can't say much better things about it. It's just good times watching this film. So I want to hear what you guys feel about this film. I think it's just fantastic. I think it's absolutely a delight. Everything's so delightful. I mean, Rachel Weisz alone is delightful. Everything she does here is delightful, but it's just kind of a masterstroke. Everything is perfect. Every joke lands, every physical beat lands. The kind of scary elements are so good and so imaginative and so fresh in a certain way. It's just refreshing to go back and watch. It's like, this is what summer action movies should be. So much. Instead of getting convoluted with so many forcing franchises and all these different bigger cinematic universes, let's not talk about the Tom Cruise version of The Mummy. That was a failed experiment from the get-go. This was just perfect from the get-go, and I just can't say much more better things about it. You tell me what you think about it in the comments. Of course, there's always the likes, the subscribes, all these different things that helps me make a better channel around here, guys. And of course, Patreon also contributes to that as well. Thank you so much, guys. You're awesome. You make this channel what it is, and I'll see you around soon. So thanks much. Take care. Bye-bye.